to be a part of this society, and I appreciate the recognition. I was surprised that I was selected and still am. I grew up in an Italian ghetto in Rochester, New York, where almost all of the adults were either first or second generation immigrants from Italy. And they were all hardworking people and worked as laborers or in factories. Both my parents died young from what I call industrial cancer. This is before OSHA and those regulations. I was interested in government and politics, that the people who seemed to have the most interesting jobs and had the most involvement and had influence were people who went to law school. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be a politician, so I decided I'd go to law school. That's how I came to Case Western Reserve. A small law firm in Toledo offered me a position, and that's how I started representing labor unions and the retirement plans and pension plans. Labor union leaders are a little distrustful of attorneys. And I think and I've asked, when people have asked me how did I get started doing it, I told them that it was because I worked. I worked in factories and I worked through law school. What I tried to do is have a high moral standard and ethical standard, and that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. My wife and I established a scholarship. We knew that people who wanted to go into public interest law, you don't obtain the type of salaries that people who go to corporate law or places like that continue to contribute to it. So the scholarship has grown over the years and helps students, and hopefully it will help more students in the future.
It's incredible what our alumni have accomplished, and I really feel so honored to even be an alumni of the same school as these distinguished graduates. I was fortunate to win a full scholarship at Case, and that was my deciding factor. My scholarship was sponsored by a number of local firms. One of them was the firm that I went to my first summer, so seeing that the local firms were committed and invested in the school was really meaningful to me. And now that I'm practicing here in Cleveland, I really do feel a responsibility to carry that on and support the current students. My favorite teacher was Bob Lowry for criminal law and professional responsibility. He was just so, animated as a person, which was very engaging. The subject matter was fascinating. And I think I truly today, 20 years in, I still think back often to the principles that we learned in those classes. Now that I'm at Tucker Ellis, we have a very strong alumni group here. We have 40 alumni at our firm. And that has been really an important part of my time here, because even back when I was a student interviewing for a summer position with Arter and Haddon, there were Case alumni interviewing me, and we talked about my experience and what it was like for students. So it's been that camaraderie has really been a part of my experience throughout my years in practice. We had a Law Alumni Association board meeting just last week, and I turned to one of my board colleagues and said, I can't remember how many years or how many times I've been on this board. I don't remember if it was 2 stints, 3 stints, a total of 12 years. It's been a lot of years. I can't quit. And the reason is because the law school is just so important to the future of our profession. We are alumni for so many more years than we are students, and I think that's completely lost on the students and particularly on the young alumni. And so that's why, for me, being engaged as an alum and supporting the school in a variety of ways has been so important. The relationships that we begin in law school, even if we're not best friends with our classmates, those are solid. And we went through something together, and we've earned a degree, we've earned a place in this profession, and there's a mutual respect there, which really endures and is very valuable. I would say that it's been a true pleasure to be involved with the law school as an alumni over the past 20 plus years, and to be moving into this society is just a tremendous honor that I truly never expected.
One thing that I've always felt is that the school does a great job teaching. I think we've been at the front of a lot of innovative ways of educating law students. I mean, we were the first law school in the country to have Lexis. So if there's one thing, to the people sitting in the room is be ambassadors for the school. Let people know about the school. Let them know about what a wonderful place it is. What I remember about the classes is that probably my favorite teacher or professor was Leon Gabinet, who taught the introduction to income tax. And he always managed to weave into the lectures some interesting side notes about his practice. I liked tax, which kind of distinguished me from most of my classmates. So, I figured if you want a competitive edge, do something that nobody else likes to do. And I was very lucky my third year, fall semester, to get an offer from the Office of Chief Counsel for the Internal Revenue Service. One of the good things that you can do as a tax lawyer, other than helping people with their taxes if they're financially maybe disadvantaged, is to work with nonprofits and help them get set up, help them obtain their tax exempt status, help them maintain that tax exempt status, and keep them focused on the things that allow the organization to run. It's clearly an honor. It's not something that I really thought about when I was law school. I would look at that list and say, okay, society ventures, and then I have to confess, I never really thought a whole lot about it. And then Dean Scharf called me to tell me that I had been, I guess, nominated, appointed, elected. I'm not exactly sure what the process is. And I was surprised because it just wasn't something that I had been thinking about. But it's a great honor. And you don't have to do academically well to be successful in your career. I'm not suggesting that at all. But when you look at just the people in my class, the things that they've done, where they've gone, Case makes its imprint out there. And it's not just in the Cleveland area, it's throughout the country. And it's always exciting to run into a Case graduate you didn't know, and they're doing something wonderful.
I was really honored when I was notified that I was being considered for the Society of Benchers. My message is always really a message of hope. Some would say I was not supposed to be here. When I was born, I was 2 months premature. I was giving my mother all kinds of problems. I was shoulder breech, placenta previa, and transverse lie, which basically means that I was turned around the opposite way with the umbilical cord wrapped around me. So the doctors had to make a choice. And the choice, of course, was to save my mother's life. So they did a cesarean section, and everybody in the room understood that I was going to die. State of medical science, 1962, 2 months premature, he's going to die. But God had other plans. It's been a nice journey to where I am now as a judge. And, I owe a lot of that to Case. Case had a lot of influence on me and my path. All my life, I had heard that Case is this good school. So I was elated when I was accepted to law school at Case, and quickly joined the class of 1990. After law school, I was the poster person for keeping an open mind about what you want to do with your life. As fate would have it, former Professor Gianelli, I believe he's Professor Emeritus now, Paul Gianelli, called me just when I was starting to think about, okay, what else do I want to do? Because I don't want to sit in this back room researching and writing all the time. And he called me. It was kind of like God was looking out. So he called me, he said, hey, I don't know if you're interested. The Federal Defender's Office is hiring, but that moment in my history probably marked the moment that my trajectory kind of shot me to this position, to this job. And so I was fortunate enough to be recommended for nomination by Senators Brown and Portman, fortunate enough to be nominated by the president, and fortunate enough to be confirmed by the Senate. So here I am. my engagement with case has pretty much been continuous. I've spoken at case on a number of occasions. It is very important that we put people in the profession that are going to honor the profession and honor its precepts and not cut corners and do the work. There's no substitute for hard work. I think it's important for us. I don't think we should just go off about our careers and say, well, I got mine, so I'll just keep going. No, I think it's important to come back to remind students that, hey, if I can do this, you can do it too. You could be a judge just like me one day.
I do think that my life has been charmed in many ways. And so I do enjoy giving back, and it keeps me really grounded. Probably the most satisfying thing that I do in my life is giving back and knowing that it makes a difference to other people. Well, I started pretty much as a litigator. And when it was the time that I should start developing my own area of practice, I had done a few cases in employment work. And then Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas were all over the television, and all of the firm's clients wanted harassment prevention programs and harassment prevention policies, and I started writing those. And I really enjoy the employment work because it's always about a human story. It's gotten better, but it's not entirely resolved. In many ways, the law, the statutes have moved forward. I don't think the courts have necessarily followed them. I think it's really difficult for people that don't have a lot of assets to litigate. When you can't find someone who's willing to take a case on a pro bono basis or on a contingency fee basis, you got to start with it's a six-figure attorney fee. And so we have priced justice out of the realm of possibility. And California courts are slow. I don't know what other courts are doing. Federal courts are slow. The pandemic didn't help, the shutdown of the pandemic. We need to work on the court and administrative systems so that real ordinary people can get the relief that they should be getting. I really am proud of the growth that I have seen for Case Western Reserve since I've moved to California. If you want to have a law school that's outside of Cleveland, you need alumni that are outside of Cleveland, and reaching back and keeping those connections going and keeping that pipeline open. Obviously, the alumni financial support enables people that wouldn't otherwise be able to attend Case to come, because that funds scholarships, it funds other things that help the law school keep their expenses down or keep the tuition down. It's crazy that people come out of law school with years and years of debt. And I was lucky enough to come out with a debt that I could pay off in my very first year. This is really exciting. Yeah, I'm just so honored and humbled to be recognized.
As prepared as law school can make you, I felt very prepared. Again, my career path was a little different because I wanted to get into the FBI, and that changed probably around my third year, 1988, thereabouts, when I met my wife, and my career path changed a little bit, and but prepared me very, very well for the field that I ended up in. I think some of the professors I remember, Jonathan Enton, I think I had him every semester. I remember having him early on, and I made a mental note every semester to try to take a course that he was teaching. He was one of my favorite professors, if not my favorite professor. I had Professor William Marshall for federal jurisdiction, who was, I thought, just a wonderful professor. I had Professor Leatherberry. Those are the main three professors that stick out in my mind, but it was a wonderful experience. It really was. Yeah, I started with a small law firm on the east side, Bernard Haffey and Bonnert, J. Ross Haffey, Some people might remember he was, I think, a very well-known criminal defense attorney, and I was with them for about 6 to 7 years. He represented one of the people in the Kirtland cult killing cases. My first year practicing, I was heavily involved in some of the motion work in that case. A very tragic case, but a very legally challenging and interesting case. I think for any student that is a current student, that's one thing that I would stress, and that is relationships, and making sure that when you're going to court, that you're developing relationships. I think reputation is everything, and having connections and ties to alumni certainly help. I'm an adjunct professor. I'm teaching criminal pretrial practice, and it's spring quarter every year, and I love it because it brings me back to what it was like to be a student. Being a student here at Case Western Reserve, it changed my life. I think obviously made me who I am today, and I'm very honored to have been a student here and also be part of the benchers.
I currently am a professor of law, and I teach in the health law clinic. So for that position, I work with third-year law students who get to practice law before they leave law school under our supervision. Of course, the hope is that we'll give them skill sets through their 3 years that will make them want to give back into the community and have an easy way in, not have to struggle to find a way. I think I have the best job ever because I get to combine both, teaching young students how to be quality lawyers, but also to represent the folks that I always wanted to represent, people who can't afford representation, but definitely need it in all areas of disability law. The Society of Benchers is a fantastic recognition for folks who have gone to our law school who have then gone out into practice and made an impact, not just a name for themselves, but an impact in the area of law that they've chosen as their profession. And as a faculty member, to be included in that is always a high praise and high honor because it means that we've been recognized for our legal skills and abilities on top of being faculty. It's a huge recognition for practice. And
what's so emotional about it?
Well, I don't... I have worked in a law school setting my whole career. So it's a hard thing to balance both being in an academic setting and also being a practitioner. So to be honored in a way that recognizes being a part of the legal profession, it's important. I've been practicing for 25 years, but to get the recognition in that way is not one that I'm looking for or two that I'm used to, because day to day, my job is here on the ground floor of the law school, working hand in hand with students, getting them ready to be recognized in this way. I don't seek those kinds of recognition points. My recognition is our students doing fantastic work in the community.
I have the privilege of attending the law school, thankfully, because of the assistance, the financial assistance that I was provided, which was really important to me because I'm an immigrant myself. I was born in Hungary. I got a job after my first year of law school with a litigation firm doing injury work. And I wound up staying there my whole career. I was fortunate that I was able to work and do something where I was really helping society. Money over safety is what I found the corporate philosophy to be. I knew going in that the reason that the product was defective was because they didn't want to spend money. Somewhere along the line, they wanted to save a few dollars. I did medical malpractice cases, and those cases were challenging. They were challenging intellectually. They involved neurology. I didn't go to medical school, but still I found surprisingly that the more heralded the defense expert was, the better I was able to cross-examine them, simply because they wrote so much. I was able to, find areas where they held opinions in one way at one time in writing, and later on, changed it to something different, which was an effective way to cross-examine an expert witness. I just think that all alumni should do something for the law school. Had it not been for the law school, they may not have risen to whatever heights they have risen to in their chosen, endeavors. Well, it's an honor to be looked upon by your peers as being a person, of substance and knowledge and dedication.
After I graduated, I returned to Chicago and worked for the Cook County Office of Public Guardian for 4 years. And then I left the Guardian's office and founded, with a colleague of mine from the Guardian's office, Children's Law Group, representing children and parents, mainly in special education matters. Very hard to advocate for your kid if you're worried about putting food on the table. Where do we all work together in terms of the best interests of a student? And one of the reasons why I practiced special education law was to make a difference in the lives of kids like myself. And because I firmly believe that one adult can make a profound difference in a child's life, I am heartened by the fact that we are paying much more attention to people's lived experiences in terms of their mental health, and in terms of hopefully inclusion and equity. Those of us who didn't go to big firms or have the sort of what people think of as the traditional legal career is something that I appreciate, and I think is a reflection on the security that the institution has in itself to be able to think outside the box. We all need to make a contribution, and sometimes, and in some places, those contributions aren't appreciated. However, I've never had that feeling in a case, and that's something that I appreciate. And I appreciate that there is a history of being open to women and minorities. We always need to push harder, achieving perfection, it's never going to happen. We always have to strive to do better.
I kind of thought that I was always going to be involved in international institutions. I could think of, my experiences in the classroom. I could think of my experiences sponsored by CASE and furthered by CASE outside the classroom. I was being abroad around the time of, I think 2001, working that summer in Geneva, which was my first sort of taste of Geneva, back in 2001, thanks to a fellowship sponsored by the Cox Center at the law school. I went after law school to The Hague, where and that was sort of my first after taking the bar, where I found out I passed the bar, and that was when I was in The Hague at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. The judge that I worked for in The Hague was moved to the UN Tribunal for Rwanda in Tanzania, and she started a stint there. And when she was asked to pick who she wanted to come and be her legal advisor, they reached out to me, and so I took a leave of absence from Thompson Ryan, right, to go there for almost 2 years. And this was, again, not, pretty, let's say early on, but early on in the life of these tribunals, and it was early on in the life of any international criminal tribunal. I was going to spend the next bulk of my career, I thought, working for an international organization, the Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies in Geneva. I took on short-term assignments, including as acting head of delegation in Indonesia and Timor-Leste, a representative to ASEAN, where I was based in Jakarta, and where I happened to be at the time of the Lombok earthquake in 2018, which was my first opportunity, I think, to really to take the lead in an emergency response operation after a major crisis. In 2020, my organization was changing as well. We had a new Secretary General, a new Chief Executive Officer coming in, and I got tapped to return to Geneva to be his Chief of Staff. And this is where I am now. So sitting in my office in Geneva about 3 years later, after returning from and being in this truly fascinating organization, membership organization of 16.5 million volunteers and 191 national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies all over the world. We win a case, I become our home, no matter where I am. And when I return, I feel very comfortable. I feel like I know the institutions. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them improve. I want to see them grow. And I'm really honored that that CASE and the Society of Ventures sees this as my experiences as worthy of induction into the Society of Ventures. And that's truly a really highlight of my career.
I'm named after my grandfather, Ludwig, whose death on August 13, 1944, in Auschwitz, my family recently observed. My middle name, Ira, memorializes my grandfather, Isaac, who, as a young man in 1905, was forced, along with tens of thousands of others, from Ukraine by the Tsar after years of persecution in the Palace settlement. Both men were marked, and their families, because they were Jewish, and they both suffered under the color of law. The notion that law as an instrument of societal order and the fragility of the values that underlie that order has always been with me. During my professional career in the public and private sector, and in my personal life, I've tried to keep in mind my values and how difficult it can be to preserve and affect these values. My time at CASE and my interaction with the faculty since my graduation and life experience has helped me to maintain that focus. My early time in law school was disorienting. I was learning a new language, a new way of thinking. The environment was competitive. There was little hand-holding. Many in my class left. I learned the language and the process, which was to support me so well. And when I got a legal internship through Mel Derschlag at the Cleveland Legal Aid Society at East 55th Street, I had my anchor and my focus. In addition to helping those who came through the office, I advised the Huff Neighborhood Association in their efforts to stabilize the neighborhood and to create a private police force to supplement the Cleveland police force. Over the years, I've been privileged to support and serve on the boards of a number of nonprofits. Presently, I serve on the board of the American Friends of Ben-Gurion University. Here, my goal is to deepen the institutional and academic relationships between CASE and BGU. I've come to see my relationship to the law school not as a one-of experience, limited to 3 years, but one that has deepened over time. I firmly believe in the necessity of supporting the school and its faculty. I'm particularly impressed by how the faculty has distinguished themselves as scholars of human rights and international law. Their efforts to create a more diverse and international student body and to expand the opportunities for student experiences in the larger legal community. These efforts stimulate and encourage my wish to support and be part of the law school community.